This is CBC Here and Now.
Anyone that is fully vaccinated and has COVID-19 must now isolate for 7 days as opposed to 10 days as it was previously.
I'm sure there's going to be more positive cases. I really hope there won't be. And I'm sure there's going to be more positives for the staff as well, which is very strange right now.
The number of isolation days will be reduced. Meanwhile, a long-term care home on the West Coast is desperate for staff to return to work.
Numbers are still too high, the transmissibility is still too strong, and it's where we need to be.
Coming up, the NLTA speaks about the impact of virtual learning on children.
Winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings, and the potential to see some hurricane-force wind gusts all in the forecast coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. An unexpected briefing today brought news of hundreds of new cases as well as another COVID-related death in this province. So let's bring in Peter Cowan to break it all down for us. Peter, what changes are they making?
Carolyn, generally what they're doing is they're shortening the period that you need to isolate, whether you test positive or whether or not you were just a contact of someone who did. Let's break down those numbers for you. So if you have COVID-19 and you're fully vaccinated, your isolation drops from 10 days down to 7. If you're a vaccinated household contact and you can't isolate away from the infected person, your isolation will also drop from 10 down to 7. Now, if you are able to isolate away, it goes from 7 down to 5 days. They're also saying if you don't have any symptoms, you should get a test 72 hours after your exposure. Dr. Janice Fitzgerald said today that there are a lot of healthcare workers isolating. That's one of the concerns, but she said this move came today because the new science is showing that Omicron tends to be sooner and shorter than previous variants.
You know, there's no doubt that this had a major impact on the provision of essential services, and we do have to keep that in mind as well and take that into consideration when we're making these kinds of decisions. So as everywhere else has had to. So it did play a role for sure.
Now, let's take a look at today's numbers. There was a new death reported today. It's a woman in her 60s in the central region. This is the 21st death from COVID-19 in the province. The number of hospitalizations remains steady at 4. There were 480 new cases announced today, but another change that will also affect the number of cases they're announcing. If you test positive on a rapid test from here on out, for example, the travelers coming into the province who have to isolate and test, then you won't get a follow-up test from the lab. You'll just be expected to isolate, and you'll then have to tell your contacts.
Okay, a lot to take in. And Peter, this week I think we've all been wrapping our heads around exactly what it means if everyone in this province gets COVID-19. You were speaking with a professor of infectious diseases and who compiled numbers for this province. What did she find?
Carolyn, there's some pretty startling numbers actually when you look at what the impact could be if, as Dr. Fitzgerald said earlier this week, most people in this province end up getting COVID-19. She assumed if we ended up with 90% of the population getting infected. She ran some numbers and let's show you what she found. She found that, let's look at hospitalizations first. She estimates more than 4,500 people could end up in hospital. More than 700 of those could end up in the ICU. And when you look at deaths, she's estimating more than 1,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador could die from COVID-19. Now, Tara Moriarty, the professor from U of T who put together these numbers, said, you know, she's already taken into account the fact that, for example, Omicron seems to be less severe than we saw with Delta. But the big issue here is Newfoundland and Labrador has done such a good job of controlling this virus that most people really haven't been exposed to it yet.
A very tiny percentage of the population has probably ever been infected. So say maybe 1% of the Newfoundland population at most has ever been infected before Omicron. What you saw was with 1% of the population infected. If you go to 90% of the population infected, you will scale that up and you'll see 90 times more, for example, roughly, than what you've already seen. And so it really helps people to understand that through all of the epidemics so far, only a tiny percentage of the Canadian population was ever infected, especially in Newfoundland. And we're now going to kind of, magnify that by 90 times in a short period of time.
She says people shouldn't get too complacent in the fact that there are only 4 people in hospital right now with COVID-19. She expects that with so many people testing positive every day and more people likely positive but not being tested, these numbers are going to continue to climb like we've seen in other provinces.
It's really, really crucial that people understand that you're not seeing a lot yet, but wait a week, wait 10 days, and it's going to be looking more like what you see in Quebec today, for example. And that people act accordingly and don't wait too late to start being very, very careful about limiting contacts with other people.
The thing she pointed out is that if you limit the contacts and you prevent yourself from getting COVID, it means you break the chain of transmission, which means you don't pass it on to someone who may be more vulnerable, who does end up needing to go into the hospital. She said the other important thing here is getting vaccinated. She said one of the reasons that the deaths and hospitalizations isn't going to be higher than those numbers is because so many people in Newfoundland and Labrador have gotten at least 2 doses, and the campaign is underway to get people their booster. Reporting live in St. John's, I'm Peter Cowan for Hearing Now.
Well, an outbreak at the long-term care center on the West Coast continues to cause alarm. As of yesterday, 25 residents and 22 staff members have contracted the virus, leaving management struggling to care for people who live there. Here Now's Colleen Connors reports.
Located in Stephenville Crossing, the Bay St. George Long-Term Care Centre serves the entire region. According to Western Health, 25 residents here have COVID-19. Some have a cough, runny nose, wheezing, others more serious respiratory illnesses.
It's definitely scary. It's scary for everyone.
While this part of the province has seen cases before, Jeff Young says this outbreak is affecting everyone. He knows of many people who are sick or isolating.
There's only a little over 107 residents maybe in place, and there's 25 residents. So that's almost a quarter of the residents already have COVID-19 to date. I'm sure there's going to be more positive cases. I really hope there won't be, and I'm sure there's going to be more positives for the staff as well, which is very strained right now.
It's not clear how the virus got in. For now, no one is allowed to visit, though residents could still see loved ones, multiple visitors each day over Christmas.
Private rooms.
One MHA has been pushing to have Bay St. George replaced for years now. It's one of the oldest facilities in the province and not equipped to deal with isolation. He wants to know how government is tackling the outbreak.
It does not have any, or if it has any, it has a very small number of private rooms, shared facilities, washroom facilities. And so when you think about some of the newer long-term care facilities where residents have their own individual rooms and their own washrooms, then self-isolation is certainly something that's easier done. So I think, the staff are doing the best they can. Obviously, significant number of them now have COVID. So it's going to be critically important for government to put an action plan in place that deals with the physical issues that are currently in that particular home.
Western Health says there's an action plan in place to protect residents. Staff are screened before coming to work, and residents' conditions are being carefully monitored. Staff from public health and acute care are helping where needed in non-traditional roles. Any exposed workers are being tested daily to quickly move them out of isolation back to the building where they're needed.
And when somebody is identified, that we can do the exemption and early return to work based on the essential workers' needs, then we were able to implement rapid testing, and we have done that on a few of our staff as well. So every day, every hand back helps. So that's what our goal is, to give people the health of it.
Wakeham welcomes it and hopes the province will bring rapid testing to other homes in the province. As for the outbreak inside here, now it's a matter of managing the virus and hoping the other 82 residents do not get sick. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Teachers, parents, and students are all adapting to another week of online learning. But what effect could these virtual lessons have on student learning in the long term? Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm brought that concern to the Teachers Association.
A mixed response following yesterday's decision to keep students online another week.
My son is in grade 12, so this is our third go-around of the online schooling, which has been very difficult on kids his age, on teenagers, from a social point of view, from a developmental point of view. He finds it increasingly more difficult to learn online. It's not ideal for him. And just the social isolation is very, very difficult to deal with. From an academic point of view, it's also really, really detrimental.
To hear that we're going into next week in the same mode we're in right now is logical from our end, because numbers are still too high, the transmissibility is still too strong.
Some parents are critical, saying standards are lower in virtual classes. And the head of the Teachers Association agrees class online is different.
But he supports the changes, saying it's all part of rolling with the pandemic punches.
That time away with your friends socially is so important at all age levels, that all of that needs to be taken into consideration. And it may not look like an exact school day of 8 o'clock till 2:30, 3 o'clock of being on task, boom, boom, boom. And that's the reality we have to face. So in terms of how the curriculum may change, that would be decisions of the school district and or government. As long as it's in line with developmental recommendations for children and is in line with what teachers can do reasonably online, we're going to support that.
Langdon says he understands concerns about long-term impacts of online learning, but says his focus is on the current school year.
Here and now, our goal as teachers in this province is to give children the best possible experience they can online, and to deal with issues and problems that may arise on a daily basis through at the school level. But overall, our dedication is to curriculum delivery.
For now, the NLTA supports continued online classes, the use of rapid tests, and for kids' safe return to school, it will also continue advocating for N95 masks. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
A pretty strong nor'easter on the way as we head through the next couple of hours through the overnight and into tomorrow. Let's take a look at what's happening right now, that area of low pressure affecting the maritime provinces right now. And we're already starting to see some snow for the southwest, and that will continue to track further north and east as we head through the overnight tonight. The big one with this one is the winds. The winds are going to ramp up, looking at gusts between 60 to 80 kilometers per hour tonight. And then as that area of low pressure tracks across the province, in behind that, we're really going to see those winds pick up, potentially even some hurricane force wind gusts as we head through the day on Saturday. That is prompting a special weather statement for areas along the north, east, as well as southeastern portions of the island, where we could see large waves and pounding surf through Saturday. All of that and snow. I'll break the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the province's oil and gas industry is sounding the alarm this week after government halted millions in annual funding for the Offshore seismic survey program. Critics say it will interrupt the industry's momentum, but government officials are defending the decision. Terry Roberts reports.
These strange-looking ships have been seen in this province's offshore for more than a decade, using seismic air guns to map geological structures under the seabed in search of evidence that indicates the presence of oil and gas deposits. The provincial government, through its Oil and Gas Corporation, invests about $20 million each year on this activity, and the results have been impressive. The data has helped attract more than $4 billion in exploration commitments by companies in recent years, and lured a growing number of oil companies to the offshore.
There's no doubting the importance of it. It has had immense value.
But you won't see scenes like this in 2022. That's because the provincial government has pulled the funding for the seismic program, at least for this year.
We felt it was the right decision to make based on our fiscal situation, based on a number of factors.
Parsons says a significant quantity of seismic data has been collected in preparation for this year's call for bids, and it was felt the time was right to pause the program.
We feel we are still in a very, very good position to have attractive information out there for companies to bid on.
This is international news. The industry is outraged by it.
But the official opposition is upset by the decision.
Oil and gas was funded the province for a number of years, and by walking away from seismic, it's my true belief that we're walking away from the oil and gas industry.
If the province wishes to make the transition to a low-carbon economy, says Parrott, it can only do so with the big revenues generated from the offshore.
This is an investment in our future, and in order to attract people here, we have to be competitive globally. And the best way to be competitive globally is to substantiate what we're saying we have offshore.
The opposition says the Liberals are breaking a 2021 election promise by pulling the funding. Parsons disagrees.
I don't think that it was a commitment in perpetuity that was made.
It was disappointing to see because we've had so much momentum with the seismic program.
According to an economic report prepared by the Norwegian company that led last year's survey, some $17 million was spent in the province, employing about 125 workers. The province's oil and gas lobby group says pausing the program does not make sense.
There is nothing that I'm aware of in government that brings a return on investment like this program. If all the companies defaulted that bid those $4 billion in the bid rounds, if they didn't do anything, the government would still receive $1 billion in default dollars. So that's 10 times the investment that the province has put in.
Noya is calling on the government to reverse its decision, or at least commit to a resumption of seismic in 2023. The energy minister is not making any commitments.
We will reassess in the future, and we'll make the best decision based on our resources, based on the direction that we're going in, and feeling that we're going to get the best return on any investment of taxpayer dollars.
So while we won't see ships like these anytime soon, the energy minister remains optimistic about the oil industry's future.
If anything, people are saying that we're putting too much into this industry.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
You know what hospital they went to? Was it St. Clair's? Health Sciences.
I envied that dead moose. Its suffering was over, and mine was just beginning.
Well, if you were watching Son of a Critch on Tuesday night, you certainly weren't alone. It was a huge debut for the locally made CBC show. Nearly 750,000 people tuned in to watch Mark Critch's memoir, which has been turned into a TV series. A spokesperson for CBC says it's one of the highest rated premieres for an original Canadian series in recent years. So congratulations! The second episode airs Tuesday night right here on CBC TV or CBC Gem. That's 9 o'clock Island time, 8:30 in most of Labrador.
Well, not only are we going to see strong winds, but quite a bit of snow for parts of the island. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the NL 511 app. Know before you go. Check road conditions, highway cameras, and the provincial plow tracker with the NL 511 app.
Welcome back. We're going to get to Ashley's forecast in just a moment, but first we're learning more about a big weather story on the West Coast. Today, Trout River is an ice rink, and that is the result of water basically coming from all directions. Water that really had no place to go. Just take a look at this map. Trout River is a beautiful coastal community just south of Gros Morne, surrounded by mountains and hills. Yesterday, just over 50 millimeters of rain fell. The temperatures also rose, shot up to 6 degrees. That triggered further snow melt, which all ran into Long Point Brook. The water was already running high when high tide hit right around 2 o'clock. Then all that fresh water was pushed right back into the low-lying community. Then around supper time, temperatures dropped and all that water froze. Natalia Crocker is the deputy mayor of Trout River, and she joins us now. Natalia, what is the situation at Trout River today?
Well, basically, there's a lot of scrambling to try and see who we can contact to make sure that this doesn't happen again, preventative measures, and also to try and clean up, to get some of the ditching done and to have people assess the landslides, because we did have 3 significant landslides here in town too.
Landslides, water coming from everywhere. I mean, take us back to sort of some of the more tense moments yesterday. What was happening?
Well, we did have a lot of phone calls from people who had water level with the road, level with the ditches, and level with their houses that was just pouring in through the basements. They had sub pumps running all day and all night, and still it didn't really help.
What about the brook? What is town council most concerned about there?
Well, our river, we've been trying for a few years now to get it dredged out, because it's basically the sand and silt coming from everywhere else is just piling up, and it's become a level with the road realistically. And if it doesn't get dredged out, then the water really has nowhere to run except for onto the main roads and into the people's properties.
You know, Trout River is a small town, a small tax base as well. You've got about like 600 or so people. I mean, what kind of support is required, and how costly could that be?
You know, we're working on it, and we've been working on it. We've been in talks with provincial and federal, and our clerk is working hard on it. Our mayor has been all day working on it. It's just, there's a lot of people working together, so it's nice to see the community spirit again. But, you know, a lot of people upset as well. Everybody's flooded. Everybody's feeling the pressure.
Those skates probably coming in handy, Natalia.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's skating today.
Well, listen, thank you so much for the update, and best wishes to everyone at Trout River.
Yes, thank you.
That's Deputy Mayor Natalia Crocker. Ashley, water, ice, and now a winter storm on the way. What is the story?
Well, Chrissy, yes, we did see a little bit of a break in the weather today, but the next system is on the way, already prompting a number of warnings. Pretty significant warnings. In fact, let's take a look at those across the board. Winter storm warnings extend a good chunk of the west coast through central and including Bonavista North, and then those blizzard conditions from southeastern portions of Labrador, including the northern peninsula, and then down through to the Bay of Exploits, and eastern half of the island is under a wind warning. So what we have going on right now is that area of low pressure over the maritime provinces. It is strengthening and heading towards the island as we head through the next couple of hours. Already starting to see some snow in the southwest, and that will continue to work its way further north and east as we head through tonight. These are the temperatures. They'll be below zero for the for central and the rest of the island, as well as the northern peninsula. And then eastern areas are actually going to see those temperatures climb. We should sit around 6 or 7 degrees in the morning, and that means that that snow is going to change over to rain as we get through the overnight. So we'll time that out for you. It's going to be fairly quiet in Labrador, just the rest of Labrador anyway, just cold through the night tonight. But this is the system. So as we head through the next couple of hours, that snow should encompass the majority of the island, and then the winds will ramp up. So we're looking at 60 to 80 kilometer per hour winds. It'll become really intense at times, the snowfall rates. So expect blowing snow, and it looks like from Gander through to the Avalon, that's where that range of potential to change over to ice pellets, and then eventually some drizzle and rain will happen in the early morning hours on Saturday. And then as that area of low pressure tracks across the province, we will see a drop in the winds through, say, Gander, Lumsden, potentially even Bonavista. We'll see that drop in winds, and then they'll ramp up in behind that again. So we're looking at those winds gusting Saturday afternoon, along with snow and blowing snow somewhere between 100 to maybe even 130 kilometers per hour in those exposed areas. And that's the case for eastern Newfoundland as well as we head through early Sunday morning. Now, as far as snowfall amounts go, the bullseye looks to be around the Bayvert Peninsula through to Bay of Exploits, where you're looking at 30 to 45 centimeters of snow falling through the day on tonight and then through the day on Saturday. Otherwise, a pretty large area of between 20 to 30 centimeters, and then just a sliver around Bonavista, even parts of Terra Nova could see between 15 to 20 centimeters. And then the rest of eastern Newfoundland, you're looking at about 5 to 15. Now, not a whole big snow event for the northern peninsula, the tip of the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador, but you've already got quite a bit of snow on the ground. So with those strong winds, that's why you're going to see those blizzard conditions. Here's a bit of a timeline for St. John's metro area, Gander, and the northeast coast, as well as the northern peninsula. The transition to rain will happen between midnight and the early morning hours, and then a couple of periods of drizzle and flurries. The winds are still going to be breezy, but they're really going to ramp up. So in the St. John's metro area, in the afternoon, when that does transition to snow, you'll likely see some blowing snow with very poor visibility through the evening hours. And then for Gander, slight chance you could see some flurries and or drizzle in the morning, and that might eat into some of your snow amounts. But again, as those winds pick up, conditions will greatly reduce, and you're likely looking at blizzard and or zero visibility at times. And then that's the case pretty much for northeast coast and the northern peninsula. Now, as far as the temperatures go, most of the day should be hovering around 2 degrees for eastern Newfoundland, in and around there and a little bit below through central and as well as the west coast. And then we'll note that wind shift, and that's when we should see that change over to snow. And then that's when the winds are really going to ramp up. Now, as far as Labrador goes, other than southeastern Labrador, Mary's Harbour, you're also in that blizzard warning. But anything north of that, towards Cartwright, Makovic, you're still looking at flurries, but not quite as windy, just out of the west, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. But it will be cold, about minus 22 for Happy Valley Goose Bay as your afternoon high for tomorrow. So that's Saturday's forecast. Sunday, looking not too bad, a little bit of a break, then another warm up. I'll get into the full details when I come back.
COVID isn't the only challenge facing Newfoundland and Labrador.
We can't just divert to the mean and do what we've always done, and that will lead to further dysfunction, and someone else in this chair 5 years from now will be facing these same questions, wondering how we are going to manage our debt.
I talked to Premier Andrew Furey about the fiscal situation he's having to tackle, that and other issues coming up. Welcome back to Here and Now. COVID isn't the only challenge facing this province. We all know about the fiscal challenges, along with a few other things. Premier, I want to ask about something. 2022 was supposed to be, I guess it is, come home year. Did we jump the gun a little bit on being ready to welcome everyone back?
No, not at all. I mean, I think, you have to play to where the puck is going to be, not where it is right now. And if you look at the epidemiology of how this Omicron variant behaves, I think that we could be in a good position. I don't know about other variants, but look, I'm here to support the hospitality industry of Newfoundland and Labrador, the tourism industry. We have an incredible product and we need to be able to plan forward.
What do you think come home year is going to look like this year?
Well, hopefully it looks exactly as we had intended it to look, with celebrations of people coming home from across the country and across the world to join us here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But you can't forget that this come home year was always designed to reinvigorate the tourism industry, the festivals that are around our beautiful province that need a little bit of an injection, a little bit of support to get them back up and going to the place they were before the pandemic, and this will definitely help.
When you talk about support, one of the things that needs a little bit of support is the balance sheet for Newfoundland and Labrador. Planning is already underway for the budget for this year. How difficult should we expect this one to be?
Well, I've always taken a very measured approach. I've always said that this is going to take a long time to get, 5 to 10 years to get out of the position that we were in. You can't forget when I put my hand to take over the leadership or to run for the leadership, we were projecting a $2.2 billion deficit. Right now, our deficit is projected this year to be $596 million. That's just in 18 to 20 months. So we are making progress. And we will continue to make progress, but it will be balanced, it will be measured, and it will be based on evidence. The challenge here is not to do anything that is too quick or based just on political knee-jerk. It has to be based on evidence. It has to be on looking towards the future about what we want Newfoundland and Labrador's economy to look like, not just in 5, but in 10 and 20 years from now.
One of those pieces of evidence that you talked about there is the report that you've asked Rothschild to prepare on looking at the assets that Newfoundland and Labrador has. Which ones does it make sense to sell? Which ones don't? Will that report be made public so everyone can see that same evidence that you're going to have to make those decisions?
Well, there's commercial sensitivities in that report, so that will be, we can't report to everybody what things are necessarily worth if we're contemplating different measures with them. So we have to respect the commercial sensitivities of the best interests of the province.
What would you say, though, to people who are worried that this may end up being a fire sale that will get rid of things that have been built up over years and years and years, in order to seek that sort of short-term payoff?
Well, we will do the analysis. There's not going to be a fireside sale. That's not the approach of this. The approach is very similar to your own household. So you have a mortgage, you may have a skidoo, you may have a shed, you may have 2 cars in the driveway. For whatever reason, you find yourself up against credit card debt. Now you need to look at that and see if you can pay the mortgage still. Now you can do 2 things. You can get a second job. We can grow the revenue stream, which is what we're doing in diversifying the economy. But you also have to look at the assets that you have, the value that they have, and how that weighs against what you're paying in debt, what you're paying in that credit card payment every month. And that's what we're going to do. That's the analysis that we're undertaking. It's not to change anything drastically, immediately, or quickly. It's to look at what are things valued and how can we be best position those to get the best value for them for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. But one thing is that certain, we continue to pay the highest out of any province in Canada on our debt financing. So before, that's often the second or the third budget line item in terms of financing our debt. We can't continue to do that. We just can't continue to run up the credit card. We need to be responsible and prudent. That can be balanced and measured moving forward, creating a new economy for Newfoundland and Labrador, but we have to be responsible and prudent. We can't just divert to the mean and do what we've always done, and that will lead to further dysfunction, and someone else in this chair 5 years from now will be facing these same questions, wondering how we are going to manage our debt.
I want to ask about how your own party manages its finances. The Liberal Party received more than $30,000 of taxpayer money. This was money that was pandemic relief designed to help with things, businesses to be able to pay rent and pay for salaries. Why did your party feel it was necessary to take taxpayer money in order to fund partisan activities?
Well, I believe the president spoke to that at the time. I wasn't leader at the time, but we had employees, we had a mortgage. I understand that they're looking at this now. All the rules were followed, and any monies that need to be paid back will be paid back. Every other federal party certainly took some subsidy as well. So it's not unusual for political parties, given that pandemic time. Again, I wasn't there to make the decision, but to have availed of those resources.
None of the other provincial parties, though, received any money. In fact, they've both called for your party to pay that money back because even though it may not have broken the rules, that morally this is money that is better put in the hands of small businesses, for example. Will the Liberal Party pay back the money it took?
I don't believe that the other parties had employees or businesses. I can't speak to them, or to rent, but certainly our party is looking at that. We'll follow all the rules, and this is ongoing discussion right now with the party president. But nothing was done incorrect.
So what do you think your party should do?
Well, we're having those discussions right now.
When we look ahead to the rest of 2022, we've talked about the fiscal challenges. What's the other issue that is going to have your main attention?
Well, there's two, really. I mean, there's healthcare and looking towards reforming healthcare in the future. I think during this time of disruption of the pandemic, we've recognized that there are serious gaps in healthcare, but we've also realized that there are equal opportunities in healthcare with respect to owning new technology, providing care differently. And we need to make sure that we are providing the care that the people of the province need in their own communities. So how we disrupt that, how we change that to make sure that the care that we are delivering is the highest quality to the people who deserve it, who need it, is going to be an important priority for me moving forward. But equally, immigration. I've always said that the demographic crisis is really an underlying key component to the economic crisis that faces Newfoundland and Labrador. Last year was our first year of meeting our targets. And we're going to continue to set aggressive targets moving forward, because we can have all the economic opportunity in the world, but if we don't have the people here to exercise that, then that will be an incredible failure moving forward. We need to make sure that we have the people here to supply, to reach our full economic potential. So not only does the demographic crisis contribute to the healthcare crisis, it also contributes to the economic crisis and touches both of those issues. And I think it's incredibly important that we focus on it moving forward.
Well, Premier, certainly lots to talk about. I appreciate you taking a bit of time to chat about some of those priorities, and I'm sure we'll be talking again this year.
No problem. Take care.
Well, a St. John's shoe repair shop is giving winter the boot.
There's three bad things in the world: being hungry, wet, and cold. At least we can keep them warm, right, with a pair of shoes.
We'll tell you about their new campaign to help those in need coming up. Winter gear is essential in this cold province, especially having a good pair of boots. But for some, warm feet in the winter is a luxury that they can't afford. And that's where the honest cobbler, aka Daryl Hines, steps in. So tell us about this campaign that you've started.
Well, actually, it started a while back. I was thinking, I've had a few customers come into my shop knowing that, they had a few pairs of shoes that I just could not fix. And when I broke the bad news to them, you could tell on their face that that was probably the only pair of shoes they had. And I felt really bad knowing that there was nothing I could do for them. And it started the ball rolling on what can I do to help these people. And so then I thought about let's give winter a boot. And
that's the name of the campaign.
And that's the name of the campaign. Yeah, absolutely. So I talked to a few friends of mine, and they thought, you know what, that's probably a good idea. So I reached out to a couple of places like the Gathering Place and then the Salvation Army. And in doing so, I realized that this is a bigger need than I ever could imagine. And they actually have waiting lists of people looking for certain sizes and men's shoes and women's shoes. So and so once I started sharing this on my Facebook page, people just shared it everywhere, and they had the great ideas. And so now it's in day 3, it's starting to really ramp up.
How many boots have you collected so far?
Right now in day 3, I have 10 pairs. And so once I start building up a pile, I have friends of mine that own a contracting company, Edge Contracting. They have a huge staff and vehicles and stuff. It's only me and my daughter at the shop, so I can't go delivering things. So they're going to graciously pack up everything and deliver it to where the people that need it. So hopefully it won't be too long and I'll be making a big delivery.
Wonderful. And so what are you looking for specifically from people? Like if someone's at home right now and they have, an older pair of boots that they don't need anymore, like what are you looking for? What do you need?
It's actually very, very wide. We're pretty much looking for everything. A lady came in this morning after hearing my interview on CBC Radio last night and dropped off 4 pairs of shoes and a pair of slippers. They're looking for pretty much everything, especially now, this time of year, cold weather and so on and so forth. The winter boots are the priority, but we'll graciously accept whatever we can get our hands on.
What kind of condition do the shoes need to be in?
Well, we say gently used. When they come in, so when you drop off a pair of boots to my shop, I right away disinfect them and lay them aside, and then I'll inspect everything. If there's a few little minor repairs, a little bit of stitching or a little bit of glue, I'll do that, at no cost, and then we'll put them on the rack. So then, actually, if somebody actually needed a pair of shoes and they came in and seen them, they were more than welcome to take them. No judgment, just take them and go away and enjoy. My goal is to just provide a service that's really needed out there, right? And not many people know that there's organizations like the Salvation Army or the Gathering Place where you can get these things. And so hopefully it picks up. My dad said one time that there's 3 bad things in the world: being hungry, wet, and cold. And right now, at least we can keep them warm, right, with a pair of shoes and or a pair of winter boots.
Well, Daryl Hines, I hope you collect lots of shoes and boots. You're warming feet and warming hearts, it seems, right now. Good luck with it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, to some other news now. Trailblazing Hollywood actor Sidney Poitier has died. Born in the U.S. and raised in the Bahamas, Poitier appeared in more than 50 films and served as Bahamian ambassador to Japan in the 1990s.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
That line is from his iconic performance as police detective Virgil Tibbs in the Oscar-winning film In the Heat of the Night. It was one of his many roles that dealt with race and transformed how Black people were portrayed in film. One biographer dubbed him the Martin Luther King of the movies. Poitier became the first African-American actor to be nominated for an Academy Award in 1958. He became the first Black man to win an Oscar for Best Actor in 1964 for his role in Lilies of the Field. Sidney Poitier was 94. Time to find out who's celebrating. Best wishes to Dennis and Annie Nash of Branch, who are celebrating their 59th wedding anniversary. 54th anniversary wishes going out to Jean and Mike Devereaux of Gander. Happy 61st wedding anniversary to Pat and Glennis Cody of Mount Pearl. Congratulations to Harvey and Leona Greening of Musgrave Town, who are celebrating their 67th anniversary. Happy 61st anniversary to Alexander and Ellen Jackson of Cavendish, Trinity Bay. Happy 56th anniversary to Clyde and Myrtle Genge of Anchor Point. Love from family and friends. Wishing Bert and Flora Sims of Port aux Basques a happy 58th anniversary. Happy anniversary to Maud and Charles Kendall, who are celebrating 57 years together. Happy 51st anniversary to Albert and Alice Keefe of Black Tickle. Happy anniversary to Harry and Vera Cruz, who are celebrating 57 years of marriage. George and Evelyn McDonald of Port aux Basques are celebrating 50 years of marriage. Congratulations. Wishing Eugene and Lorraine Bowen of St. Mary's a happy 56th anniversary tomorrow. Happy 65th wedding anniversary to Viola and Herb Hewitt from Cormac. Happy Emerald anniversary to Gerald and Lillian Pinn of Hants Harbor, Trinity Bay, celebrating 55 years together. Wishing Josephine and Winston Rogers in Centerville a happy 50th anniversary. Happy 60th anniversary to Ralph and Elizabeth Lovell of McIvers. Now to some birthdays. Happy 90th birthday to Marie Pennell of Trepassey. Happy 90th birthday also to Dorothy Maloney from Sweet Bay, now living in CBS. Wishing Mabel Lemoyne of Port aux Basques a very happy 96th birthday. Liz Critch of Gaskers, St. Mary's Bay, is celebrating her 99th birthday. Happy 91st birthday to Mitt Guzny of Deer Lake. Pearl Roberts is also turning 91. She's from Brigus and now lives in CBS. Happy 95th birthday to Josephine White of St. Brendan's. Birthday greetings going out to Gerald Googie Gulliver of Torbay, who just celebrated his 90th birthday. Happy 91st birthday to Eileen Han from Port-au-Port East. Wishing Ronald Denny of Corner Brook a happy 95th birthday today. Happy 91st birthday to Elfrida Butler from Monkstown, Placentia Bay, now living in CBS. Happy 95th birthday to Agnes Hocko of Lakeview in North Arm, and a very big happy birthday to Philomena Broderick, who turned 100 this past Monday. She's from Glenwood and now lives in Gander. Hope you had a wonderful day. Ashley is back with a look at the long range tomorrow. A messy day coming, a good day to stay indoors. What about Sunday? How's that looking?
Yeah, the day where we can clean up from the messy day on Saturday. It looks like temperatures will be below zero for most areas, except along the south coast, where you will hover around the 0 degree mark through the afternoon. Marystown hovering there, as well as Port aux Basques. And then actually temperatures are going to start to warm up, relatively speaking, from where they have been for the last week or so up across Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay hovering around -11 through the afternoon, and Nain at about -18. Now, it does look like we're still going to see the flurries continue for the west coast, and then eventually later on in the afternoon and evening hours, we're going to see some snow move in for Lab West. And here's a look at that system there for overnight into Monday morning. And then the next one will move through, and this one looks like another warm up for the island. Not quite as significant as far as rainfall goes as what we just saw with that last one. Not quite as significant as far as the temperatures go either. But it is still going to warm up, and the winds are going to be quite brisk with this one as well. So overall, we're looking at about 7 degrees in St. John. So eastern areas will see quite mild temperatures, but towards central and the west coast, you'll be around 0 to 2 degrees through the day. But definitely still going to see that transition to rain. But then back over to snow, because temperatures will drop into the evening hours again. Now, Labrador, I have your temperatures in and around the -teens, -20s though for Lab West. And you're going to see your snow end in the morning with some sunny breaks in the afternoon. Now, there is another warm up, looks like midweek next week, or at least late next week. But until we get there, windy conditions continue on Monday. And then we're looking at Tuesday and Wednesday. Pretty nice out there with some sunshine and temperatures into the -single digits. For central Newfoundland, you're looking at a little bit cooler, especially Wednesday night, -20 you'll dip down to, but keeping that chance of flurries in for western Newfoundland. -9 to -13 will be the temperature range through midweek next week. And then as far as Labrador goes, you're looking at your temperatures into the -teens, dropping though towards the beginning and end of next week. around -20 for your Wednesday with the chance of flurries, and then pretty unsettled, but just some flurries it looks like for Tuesday and Wednesday for Lab West. This photo is the calm before the storm. Kirby shared this shot with us from Monroe, Trinity Bay. Thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos you'd like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Ashley. And one quick note as we leave you tonight, if you're looking to get your booster shot this weekend, there will be a walk-in clinic in St. John's on Saturday and Sunday. The clinic will be at Waterford Valley High School, and you can go anytime between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And they'll also have curbside vaccinations as well. Well, that's it for Here and Now tonight. Have a great weekend.